Good morning, men. We just wanted you guys to see how some of these things play out in our everyday lives, those personality types that Tim talked about last week. Have y'all been kind of this week just with a little different lens, kind of when you've run into people maybe in a good way or even in a negative way, kind of said, well, gosh, there's some harmonizer coming out there. Man, that's some persister or achiever coming out of there. I mean, did you see Michael? I mean, he walks into this room and he's ready to just be a celebrity and everybody love him and they're booing him and just the distress that he went in. And that's what we see a lot of times. That's how we can identify those personality types, is when that personality type is in distress. And the CEO's up there and he's got achiever language going on, and you've got then Michael, he's got the harmonizer. You got in line where Dwight Schrute is being the persister. No, you can't get out of line. That's just wrong. So we're going to do that more. And where we're making the term, guys, remember, this isn't just information. This is information for a purpose. We're here to be better men. And our goal to come out of this section, this Your Unique Design, is what is our Your Unique Purpose? And so we're working towards a mission statement, and Tim's going to help us do that, a personal mission statement. But before I call Tim up this morning, I had to say a welcome this morning. We got some young guys here this morning that are known to, I think, most of the people in here. Could we have the young Duggars stand up and just say hi to those guys? So you guys give them a hand. Welcome 5 of the 19 Duggars. And America's favorite dad, Jim Bob, just say hi to the guys. We're really glad to have you guys here this morning. We've just enjoyed how much you've helped America see what a real man and a real father can do as a man of influence in his family when he puts God first. Tim, would you come on up? Welcome, Tim Lundy.
Well, good morning, men. How are you? If you'll turn in your workbooks today, session 17, as Russell said, this morning we're going to spend some time turning the corner both on understanding the profiles, but also how do you begin to prepare your own personal mission statement. As we said in all of this, you can do these profiles, you can try to understand yourself. If it's just about you, if the whole purpose of this is understanding you, as enlightening as that is, that's a dead end. Really, the whole purpose of this is understanding you so that you can understand how God created you and figuring out how you can serve others and make a difference in other people's lives. And so part of that is figuring this out so that you can not only relate better to your spouse, relate better to other people, your boss, but also figure out, why am I on this planet? What is my mission? What's my mission? Why am I here? If you look in the session 17, we'll start just a little bit of review on the character descriptions. Also, because we plugged through 2 sessions last time and did all of the profile descriptions, we've got a little time built in over the next couple of weeks. And so I'm going to take a little bit of time if you have any questions. Something maybe didn't ring true, maybe something you've been struggling with. We're going to stop after we've reviewed the profiles and do something a little different. Just take some questions if you have them. And then we'll move toward the process of how do you write your own mission statement. I want to read some descriptions of different personalities. And I want you to just guess, who am I talking about? Let's just begin. See how intuitive you are, how aware you are of the different profiles. Here's the first one, Hank. Hank begins the morning. He goes through the front door of the company office complex. He's feeling happy. He feels useful, accepted. He says, "Good morning, George," to the security guard, a kindly man with whom he feels an affinity. "Hey, George, I heard your wife is sick. I'm really sorry about what you're going through right now. In fact, my wife Mary made some chicken soup, and I brought it in this morning. I'm going to put it in the company refrigerator. Why don't you take it home tonight and make sure it takes care of the both of you? Hey, you take care of her. You're important to us. You know that." Now, who is Hank? He's a harmonizer. I mean, it jumps out real quick. Feeling language. He's aware of people. He actually cares about people. Doesn't matter his position. Doesn't matter George's position. He just cares about people in real life. So you can see this. The personality part's harmonizer. Their viewpoint is, I feel. They feel. They're aware of their feelings. They're aware of other people's feelings. And so their strengths, they're compassionate. They're warm, very likable people. Let me give you the second person. This is Art. Art's walking in the building. He's happy because he's 7 minutes ahead of schedule. In fact, his first appointment's not for 37 minutes, so he stops by the print department to check that his proposal's been collated. It's his latest studies on ways to improve efficiency in different departments. As he looks at the collated study, he says, the boss is going to be pleased with me in all the ways I've contributed around here. Now, who's Art? Achiever. He's an achiever. He's thinking all the time. He's evaluating. He's in that mode of making sure he accomplishes things. He's logical. He's organized. He's time structured. He's very time conscious. That's a mark of an achiever. Third one, this is Pete. Now, Pete is in high evaluation mode as he arrives this morning, and he's got some issues that he wants to discuss in an afternoon meeting, so he arrives early, half an hour early. He says to himself, I believe management will continue to recognize my commitment to this organization. Certainly, they're going to recognize the extra committees that I've signed up on that really aren't even a part of my job. I just need to make sure the boss recognizes the full extent of them. Then Pete notices a courier walking out of the building. He's got a bank deposit slip in one hand. He's holding the money bag in the other hand, and Pete immediately thinks, I need to send out a memo. Couriers need to take all money to the bank in a disguised satchel so that people are not aware of what's going on. He immediately goes to his desk and sends out a memo. Now, who's Pete? Persister. Persister, he's doing the right thing. I go over and above. I want people to know what I contribute around here. I'm doing the right thing. In fact, I'm seeing things all the time. I have nothing to do with couriers, but I'm going to make sure we do our deliveries right. And he's always evaluating in that. Here's the third one. Third one is Dean. Dean sits quietly in his car in the parking lot, transfixed for a moment by the sudden idea about the office complex environment. He had an idea triggered from a Wired magazine article he had read the night before. It seems there's a recurring problem of drastic changes in conference room temperature. Imaginative solutions to mundane problems spring to him all the time. The outside morning rain only enhances his reflective nature. He makes a quick note of the idea for room temperature control, then pauses to watch the frantic running of people in the parking lot. As he gets out his umbrella, calmly walks toward the office, slips past the crowded break room, and gets in his office and shuts the door to be alone. Now, who's Dean? He's dreamer. He's reflecting. He's imagining solutions. Things come to him. But he likes to be alone. He's got to have his personal space, his time. It's a very reflective and calm approach to life. The fourth one, Carl. Carl's taking the long way so that he could window shop into the way to the office, walking past the retail complex. The concourse is crowded today because of the rain outside, but Carl loves the hustle and bustle of the crowd. To his surprise, he notices an elegant woman approaching one of the escalators, and it's the senior vice president's wife. He also notices that her mink coat is about to get ensnared in one of the steps, and so he rushes forward to her side to prevent the accident. As he grabs the coat, she says, "Thank you, Carl." And he says, "Well, it's my privilege, Mrs. Watson. I mean, you can't let a gorgeous fur like that get destroyed." She smiles at him. He says, "By the way, do you know anything about your husband's meeting this afternoon? Maybe you can tell me about it as we ride up." Now, who's Carl? Catalyzer. He's a man of action. Looks for the opportunity. He likes the hustle and bustle. He sees a doorway, sees an opportunity. Hey, I'm going to step through it. And in that, he's always acting. He's going to act on it. Let me give you the last personality part. Ernie. Ernie stands in the middle of a loud and laughing group of co-workers in the office break room, or as some people like to call it, Ernie's office. He's sharing some funny lines he heard from the late night show. Everybody laughs, not so much at the lines, but the way that Ernie riffs on them. Each person that passes by gets Ernie's acknowledgement. "Hey, how's it going, Dave? Nice hat. Cowboy now? Cowboy Dave. Hey, everybody wave to Cowboy Dave." And everybody waves to Cowboy Dave. "Hey, Phyllis, like the hair. Is it rain or are you just going for the straight out of the shower look?" Phyllis looks back and says, "At least I have hair, Ernie." Which Ernie dies laughing. He loves Phyllis because she gives it back as much as he gives it to her. Now, who's Ernie? Energizer. He's an energizer. He's always reacting and looking for reactions. He likes fun. He's always engaged with people. Now, I've given you probably pretty big profiles in easy language, but I'm going to tell you, if you'll start applying these things, if you'll start looking at the way people talk, in fact, I'd encourage you to look for their currency. You know, when we lived in Thailand, wife and I lived in Thailand for a couple of years, one of the first things you have to learn is currency exchange. You go over there and it's the baht is the currency of Thailand. And it was about 40 baht to $1. And the longer you live there, you learn to do the math in your mind, what's a good deal, what's not a good deal. And you always got a better deal when you're shopping, even in the expat areas, if you used baht. If you used dollars, you walked up and you had dollars in your hand, I mean, immediately they go, oh, rich American. And they're going to double the price in what they were doing. I mean, it's just good business. If you used baht, if you used the local currency, if you were fluent in that, and if you knew a little bit of Thai too. I used to love to go to the street markets because, you know, you go to the street markets and the whole time you're just dickering over the price and trying to get them down. And I would take friends and I'd go, if you'd let us work it with a little Thai, we can get you great deals. And I'd have some friends, they were determined, no, I can get a good deal. And invariably they'd come back with all these things they had bought and they'd tell you the price and you're going, oh man, you were taken to the cleaners on that. If you knew the currency, you knew a little bit of language, it's amazing the transactions you can make. And I'd say the same is true in this. We all have our own currency. Whatever your foundation is, it's your natural currency. It's what you're comfortable with. It's your dollars. But if you'll learn some currency exchange, if you'll learn to see life the way they are, if you'll learn to talk the way they talk, and I'm not talking about in a manipulative way. You can use this stuff in a manipulative way. You can just, I'm going to figure out everybody and just manipulate them and just speak in their currency to get what I want. Especially if you're a base catalyzer, you might really be tempted to do that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, though, communication and trying to see life where they are and connect with them, especially in your marriage, especially in your coworkers' relationship. You start applying those currencies. So if you look at what are the currencies for each one, for harmonizers, the currency is compassion. The currency is compassion. If you will exchange, you go, I am not a compassionate person. I don't think that way. I'm telling you, if you work with harmonizers, maybe you have an employee or a boss or your spouse, if you'll start there, instead of going with your dollars, you'll go with their currency, you'd be amazed how they'll respond to you by showing compassion first. Achiever, it's logic. It's logic. If you're working with an achiever, you better have your ducks in a row. You better have your argument nailed down. Don't just launch the idea if you don't know where it's going. Achiever will eat your lunch and enjoy it in the process. You just kind of throw out this, hey, we ought to do this. Really? We're going to do that? Because if we do that, it's going to lead to that and that. And you want us to go there? And you're going, oh, I just thought that was a good idea. Just don't do that. With an achiever, you need to think it through. Use logic with that. Persister, it's values. It's values. Persister-based people, they want to know they're doing the right thing. It doesn't matter if we can accomplish it if it's the wrong thing. And are we living in the values, reflecting their values, and evaluating? If you have been observant, persisters love that. Are you noticing? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? And so like the story of the guy, he sees the courier going out with the money and the deposit slip, and he thinks, man, that's just a mistake. Well, if you appreciate that, go, man, thanks for picking up on that. I wouldn't have seen that. And respect them in that process. Dreamer, it's imagination. Spend some time and imagine with them. My wife's got, it's not her base, but she's got a lot of dreamer in her. And so sometimes she'll just want to talk about what if with the house. What if we did? And she's just kind of going, she's been thinking. Now, persister achiever, I immediately start going dollar signs. Oh, I mean, if we did that. And that impacts the value. I mean, there's no equity added by doing that. And she didn't want to go there. That wasn't the conversation. In fact, she wasn't even sure we even bought or did anything. Would you just come dream with me a little bit? Could we at least imagine? And by opening that door, we can connect more in that. Catalyzer, charm. They have that charm. They have action. They want incidents. Let's do something. Catalyzers get antsy after a while. We got to do something. We can't just keep talking about it. And so if you got a catalyzer on your team and you just keep processing and processing and processing, and they just get so frustrated, sometimes they'll just go do something. And you think they're being disrespectful. And they're just dying inside. They got to do something. If you'll use some charm with them as well, though. If you'll speak with them, you'll think in those terms with that. And then energizers, playfulness, humor. Push back a little bit. They joke with you, you joke with them. They'll like that. And you start applying these things, and you start seeing why some of the rubs happen where they do, but you start realizing we could get along better than we think. You're an energizer, and you have a persister boss. I'm going to tell you, if you got a persister boss, at his core, he wants to be respected. He wants to know he's respected. And so you got an energizer employee, and you think, man, I am so close to the boss because, man, I zing him all the time. And the boss is walking around going, that person's the biggest jerk in the world. He has absolutely no respect for authority. And you see the mess that's going on? Now, if you're the persister boss and you got the energizer employee, maybe approach them from their world of, if they're zinging you, it might be because they actually like you. You're bringing something out of them, and you learn to react with that. Let's take a harmonizer wife, achiever husband. Harmonizer wife says, I feel bad. I don't feel good. And what does the achiever immediately do? He goes into logic mode, doesn't he? Well, what time did it start? Well, I don't know. Well, you know what time it started. It started at 10 o'clock or 1 o'clock. What time did you start feeling bad? It's just my head hurts. Well, have you taken Tylenol yet? No. If you don't take Tylenol, it won't work the sooner you take it. Now, and she's in the middle of the conversation going, what? He doesn't love me. He could care less about me. I'm just something to be fixed. And he's over there going, bless her heart. If she didn't have me, she wouldn't even know to take Tylenol. You know, I'm such a good husband. And she's got that total mix. And not only now is she feeling bad physically, she's feeling bad emotionally with that. Or she says, you know, you don't tell me you love me. And if he's in achiever mindset, well, nothing's changed. Of course I love you. I have to keep telling you that? Yes, because feelings, they got to hear it. Now, we're talking husband and wife. You may work with a guy who's a harmonizer. Remember, harmonizers a huge base of the population. And so I've been doing this with different groups, did it with a group of couples the other night. We had tons of harmonizers in the group, husband-wife harmonizer. And you can look at them. I mean, you look at their relationship, husband-wife, their base harmonizers, they're just happy as clams. You know, they're just loving and that. And you may work with somebody who's a harmonizer, and you're sitting there constantly going, man, just come on, buck up. Let's get with it. If you just spend a little bit of time trying to connect with him, how does he feel? Why is he feeling that way? You'd be amazed the productivity that can increase with that. Here's what I'd encourage you. Turn in your workbook, if you turn back to page 59, there's a summary page of all these. Summary page of all these things. And in them, you'll just see what I've talked about, the summary profile, the currency, the language with that. Now, one of the things I hit a little bit last week, and Russell talked about, when you get under stress, the ways these show up, and I'll just walk through them. They're not on this page. But under stress, and when they get in distress, a harmonizer starts making more mistakes. They just make mistakes with that. They invite criticism. A harmonizer that starts getting into stress, I mean, they'll just go, I'm lousy. If you hear your wife going, I'm a lousy wife. I'm such a horrible mom. I can't do anything right. If you hear a coworker, that's a harmonizer that's in distress. And they're feeling in that moment, and they really feel that. I mean, you look at them, and maybe achiever mode or persister mode, you go, you're a wonderful wife. What are you talking about? You do this, you're awesome in that. So you're using logic to fix distress around feelings with that. They'll show a lot of self-doubt too. Just every decision, I don't know. I don't know if I should do that. And they can get caught in that mode. Achiever in distress over-controls. Achievers in distress, they over-control. That's why they end up alone so much, because I can't trust anybody else. I'll just do it. Just get out of my way and let me do it. See, that's an achiever that's in distress. I'll do that, and I'll start controlling everything around me. They're frustrated with those who don't think. Achiever in distress, you may hear yourself saying it to employees. You go, would you just think? Think what you're saying. Think about this. And frustrated, why can't everybody think like I think? Critical around time, responsibility, and fairness. They just start getting very critical in those areas when they're under distress. Persister under distress starts pushing their belief even more. They're frustrated with those who do not believe. They become very critical and suspicious. Persister-based people live with a lot of fear. Fear of what's happening with the world. Fear about the next generation. Fear about what's going on in society. A lot of times, I'll see it, some of the email rumors that go around, the doomsday rumors. And I mean, let's face it, as Christians, we latch onto them pretty quick. Sometimes I'll see some of the most doomsday email scenarios come down the line, and they get forwarded to me. Is this true? Is this going to happen? Is this going on? And what that is it's persister-based people. I mean, they see evidence of that, and I'm suspicious. It's bad. That's why, who was the group that was the most afraid of Y2K? Y2K, the world's going to crash. I mean, there's persister-based fear, and so you got to stay ahead of it. Now, it's based out of, we have these values you want to protect. It's based out of a good thing, but it can trigger fear with that, especially under stress. A dreamer under stress withdraws. Projects are started, they're not finished. Dreamers that are under stress have a lot of things going on. They never finish. They don't land them. They passively wait. The world's happening to me. I'm a victim. I don't really control my own world. I knew this was going to happen. If you got a kid that's a dreamer, you got to watch them because they can assume I won't make the team. I'm not even going to try out. I'm not going to do that. Those things don't happen for me. And dreamers, you can tell yourself, other people get those breaks in life. I don't get them. That's just, I'm not one of those people. And the more they get in distress, they go into that mode. Energizer, they blame. If you're an energizer in distress, you start blaming. You're negative, complaining. A lot of yes, but. If you maybe got an energizer kid, did you do your homework? Well, yes, but, the teacher didn't give us everything we needed. Did you deliver the project at work? Well, yeah, but, you need to realize there's other people in the department, they're not doing what they're supposed to do, and if they had done their job, I really did my part, technically. Even though it's not done, because it wasn't my fault. There's the energizer. They go into that place. If it weren't for, you'll hear that. Well, if it weren't for, and they can blame too. Energizers, like dreamers, can become victims in some ways. It's not my fault because I'm really not in control here, but I'll exert a lot of it. And then finally, catalyzer. Catalyzer in distress starts manipulating. They'll manipulate people. They'll set up arguments just for the sake of it. A catalyzer can come into a room and they're kind of feeling it, and so they're poking not like an energizer because they just want to have fun with it. They just want to, let me just blow up this room. Let me see these people fight it out. And catalyzers can do that and get in that. They create negative drama. They ignore or break the rules. Ignore or break the rules. That's why sometimes you'll see in business these amazing stories of these conquering guys, these entrepreneurs that conquered, built these huge companies, and then somewhere along the way, you just go, what? He robbed the company of all of its assets? Or he did this illegal deal over here? There's things in it, and there's parts of it, it's so jarring, you go, what in the world? Morally, he wipes out over here? And you go, that guy was too smart, he was too sharp. What was going on? Well, as a catalyzer, at some point, got under such stress and distress, and it's just the rules blurred for him. In a way that now we step back in society and we go, couldn't you see that? Now, I say these things under stress, the stress part of it, because you need to, whatever your base, figure out what those stresses are. And if you start seeing some of these signals, when you start seeing yellow lights, don't let them get to red lights. Don't let them get to red lights. Something's got to change in your world, or you're on some of that same path with that. You're not better than other people that are wired the same way. We just need help in that and how to disrupt with that. All right, let me stop there real quick and take just, if you got any questions on this, because I've heard guys that go, what if I got competing? One of the questions I'll just answer, some people say, what if I'm 100% on competing things, and they feel so opposite? I'm a harmonizer, I'm also a persister. I'm 100% on both of those. In some ways, those feel very opposite, because persister, value-based, I want to be respected. Harmonizer, I want to be loved. And I would say you probably feel that conflict a lot. In fact, if you're a persister, harmonizer boss, you live in a lot of conflict of, we're going to do the right thing. And sometimes you'll put your foot down strong on it. But then later you feel kind of bad about it, so you come back by their office. You okay with that? That harmonizer starts flaring with that. They can balance each other in great ways if you'll rest in the strength of them, or you can feel schizophrenic to your employees if you don't come to grips with it and recognize those parts in it. Other questions? Anybody got any question on this at all?
Tim, you said the one just under 100% is your phase that you're in?
Yes. Yeah, your foundation's the bottom one. For most people, it's 100%. I had a question that came up. What if my foundation isn't 100%? Am I not a developed human being? Am I a problem? No. Again, none of the bars, this is what I like about this profile. There's no pass-fail. There's no perfect profile. You don't own all that part. Whatever your bottom one is, your foundation, and for most people it's 100% because you get full energy out of it. That's the glasses you have on in life. That's just there. It's kind of your operating system. Like when the computer comes on, you got the operating system, and you don't even see it there. That foundation is such a part of you. You don't see it there. Now, and that's why if you're going to have a blind spot, it's usually in your foundation. It's just so a part of the way you see the world. It's hard for you to think people don't see the world like you do in that grid. The next thing up, now let's say you got one that's 100%, and then you've got the next one up is 100% as well. That's a stage. That's a stage you've worked through, you've spent energy in, and you've worked all the way through that, and it's become part of that foundation, but it's not as core as your foundation. The next bar you have, it may be your second bar, maybe your third bar. I know, guys, it's their fourth bar up there. The first one that you have that's less than 100% is your phase. That's your phase. And you might have found that when I was talking, a lot of the things you identified stressors-wise, need-wise, feeling-wise, all that, really was whatever the phase was more than the foundation. You can see the core of the foundation there, but phase is what you're currently experiencing the most. It's what you're working in. It's what you're processing in. A lot of times a midlife crisis is when somebody's worked through a stage and they move into a new phase. Have you ever seen a guy that he go, man, just like he switched, he went into a new phase of life. He really did. And part of it was he kind of processed through this completely that you'd go, man, that bar was 100%. Now he's up in that phase and he's working on that. A lot of the population never grow in any of their bars. You're just in that. You know your strengths. You live that. It's not a sign, again, it's not a sign of more development that you work through more phases. You can succeed in a lot of ways. Some people say, well, are you going to be more successful if I've got 100% or higher percent in a lot of bars? You can be because it gives you a lot of strengths to come out of. Another thing that can happen, though, it actually can hold you back because you live in conflict so much. You got so much energy in different ways. There's never really anything that feels like base that you just operate and that's your groove. And so you have to be careful if you've got a ton of bars of recognizing those strengths. And what we talk about here with abilities on the rest of this session, I think will really help you with that. Because as great as all this is understanding relationally, moving that toward how it shapes your abilities and strengths is where your mission will come out of that. Dempsey, does that make sense? All right. Any other questions? Oh, right here, front row.
I was just wondering, like based on, if you score very high, let's just say on Harmonizer, Achiever, Persister, are there certain careers that you should really look at based on your top scoring personality types?
Yeah, I've not seen it, and it might be worth looking at Taby's book. The question was, are there certain careers that you should go based on what your foundation and strengths are, and certain things that you should avoid? Yeah, I mean, it starts getting general. I will say you can see successful people with each one of those bases, especially in business. If they learn how to operate the base, I think the key is you start learning, and we teach it a lot around here, life's done as a team. Work's done best as a team. And when the more you start understanding this, it just goes, if I'm here, I need to make sure, and this is where you got to be careful. Let's say I'm a harmonizer base. My temptation will be to surround myself with harmonizers. Man, we all love each other. It feels good being together. We have that. But then you got some gaps. And so you look at that. So I think more than anything, not as much career, it's how do I work together with people around me, who works well with me, and using those abilities with that. I mean, I think there's some careers that you might be limited in that. I don't know if Tabby Kaler, who did original design of this and used this profile, and he was hired by NASA because they wanted to test astronauts that are going up in the program. How are they going to respond under stress? How are they going to, who's going to do well in ways? And so there were some profiles that they go, you probably don't want that guy on the team up there in a high-stress situation with what they're doing in it. And so it might be worth looking at Taby's book. And next week I'll come with the title of Taby's book. I don't think it's in print, but you may be able to find back copies of that. And he gets more definite with that. It's a good question. In the back. In all these things, because I think there's a good question of I'm 100% of something doesn't mean I'm good at stuff in life. I may be an achiever and I'm motivated to do things. You still have to have your skill set that's with that. I think there's a certain part of catalyzers or risk takers like that. I mean, that'd be one of that. They need incidents. I need to feel alive. And so Pinnacle, it's probably not, I'm going to go for something like that. That'd be a personality profile that might do that. But you might see different, your motivation for doing that could come out of different base. An Energizer may look at it and go, that sounds fun. Let's just go for it. Let's do it, And then the Energizer's going to want to take a couple of people with them, And the Harmonizer may go because, man, I've always wanted a trip of a lifetime with best friends. So you can see the different motivations could lead to something. There's some personality parts, though, that'll be more, and I'd say catalyzer, achiever, if they really have that bucket list, that's one of their bucket list things. They're gonna go for some of those maybe extreme things with that, but it can come out of different motivations. Any other questions? Over here. Help us understand Russell Rainey. We don't have the time. But I tell you, next week, as we start transitioning back to Russell Landing, I'm going to finish out next week. We're going to take some time. I'll tell you today how to begin writing your mission statement as we close out, and then move you into some project time. Next week, I'll come back and we'll process some mission statement, land some of this. And so if you've got any other questions, we can process with that. We'll use Russell as some case study material next week, and then he's really going to do that the next week with himself. He'll give you his own mission statement, his profile, the different parts. So you get both of us and kind of get to dissect us in the process. Hey, I want us to move to writing your mission statement. And you've got the project that's there in your workbook. If you use that summary page, from page 59, and then look on page 61, of writing your personal mission statement. Now, if you want to do a sketch run at it, go back a couple of pages, and on page 57, there's a draft to do that. But on page 61, you can start writing the one you want to do. In it, it's very simple. Just start transferring the information from your personality profile. You start summarizing in some ways. So you put your name, see the strengths, and that's the 3 parts. And I would say, look at 3 that you have 70% or more energy in. So if you've got something that's 70% or more, put them in those lines. It may be 1 thing, it may be 3 things, it may be 2 things, but just limit it down to the things that are 70% or more. And then go back and look at that summary chart, use the descriptive words that best describe you. And so what that means, if you look at that summary chart on 59, and your things are harmonizer and persister, so the strengths are compassionate, sensitive, and warm. You might look at that and go, I'm probably not as sensitive, but I am very compassionate. I'm warm. Pull a couple of words out of it that really strike you. Part of this is even though we're narrowing down, there's still some generalities they're having to use. And you at a point, what is the stuff that pops for you? And start synthesizing that. Then put your viewpoint. Based on your personality part, my viewpoint is I view the world through what lens? Then your motivator. What are the things that motivate you? All this is in your profile, or you can just go over to this summary page and transfer it over. What's the motivator? What's the things that motivate me in life? Now, then you're going to have to pull out your actual profile for the next part, the subject matter. If you remember in your profile, there's a section where it measured you on data, people, and things. And there's probably one of them that you saw a number of strengths that showed up on data, people, and things. And so for me, it was people. So I would check the people box with that. In fact, if you want to see the activities, and under that, look at the activities you scored 70% or more. Again, use 70%. So if you look at this slide, that was under things. In my profile, this is how I tested under things. And you remember all those testing you did in it, and it described the different ways with it. Now, you probably don't want me working with things. If I was just working with things all day, I'd lose my mind. About the only thing I'd like to do maybe is drive around and operate something, steer a forklift. I remember that question in it. But otherwise, I'm going to lose energy real quick. It's just not my world. Now move to data. Now, there's one that pops for me. I like taking data, synthesizing, theorizing, especially as it's applied. Now, I can coordinate and plan, but look at the energy that drops down there. Now, if you had me doing comparison and checking all day, I'm telling you, by lunch, I'm ready to just jump off a cliff. I want to check the detail. That's just not that. So you see that. Now, for me, then, look at people. This is what came out in the testing on people. All right, so highest was there, instructing, teaching, training. And then a lot of them in that 92% speaking, persuading, entertaining, negotiating, decision-making. I like that, a lot of energy. Then I start dropping down, actual mentoring, advising, counseling, down to 88%. Still high, but be honest with you, I get a lot more energy out of doing what I'm doing right now with the larger group than even if I took all the same information and just sat down one-on-one with you. I just start dropping a little bit more in energy. It's just the way I'm wired with that. I feel more comfortable here. And then go down to supervising and directing work. There's energy there, but you start noticing those drops. And what you do out of that is you start looking at it. You know you better than a test knows you, but this can start giving you some categories that you go, oh, okay. Yeah, I do like that. What is it about that you like? Then you transfer it, the last section there, or the second to last, to abilities. And if you remember in your profile at the end, it listed some abilities that you tested high based on your personality design. And this gets back to your question when you were asking about, are there certain parts of the profile that certain careers? Well, go to these abilities because these abilities should help you match up. So look at my abilities. These are the 5 that came up for me. First one's influencing. Influencing. And now under that, it used different descriptors to describe influencing. Here's what I'd say. Not all of those descriptors match me. They're not all on point. And so what I want to do at this point is I look at that and I look at those descriptors. So influencing, enlisting others to gain their support, serving as an expert, professional, consultant to influence others or outcomes, promoting, politicking to influence others or outcomes, negotiating, and bargaining. When I start narrowing that down for me, I go, yeah, I like to enlist others. I like to in order to influence the outcome. I want to see something change. And so that's what I move toward in that. And so I use that whole list not to say I should be doing all those things. I start using that list, and here's what I did with mine. I just go, what are the words that pop? Yeah, that pops. Yeah. And out of that, it helps me narrow down, Tim, this is what really energizes you when you influence. Here's the second one that came up for me. Communicating. Presenting an idea in an oral presentation, public speaking, publicizing, getting the word out, describing or reporting on something in verbal or written language, discussing in order to clarify and make things more clear to others, explaining, articulating to others verbally. Now, I start narrowing that down. I don't like necessarily just reporting. I don't like reading something, reporting, and sharing it. Because if you take that first one with influence, I want to present. I want to publicly do this in a way that is starting to influence outcomes. That you understand it, but I could care less that you just understand it for understanding's sake. I want you to understand it so you actually go do something. And if I feel like you don't walk out to go do something, it's very frustrated for me. So I would not be happy as a classroom teacher. I mean, a lot of classroom teachers, they love the information, and if they can present that information and everybody understand, they're satisfied. That was their goal, education, that would not. So when I look at communicating, That's a realm that I would pull out of. And so I start using those terms to help me narrow down. Do you see how you start using this to go, yeah, I like to do that? And again, what are the terms that pop? We go to the next one. Third thing that came up for me was conceptualizing. Finding a common thread, a theme, a concept, or connecting idea that brings together facts or ideas. Working things out by first going through the steps, coming up with a theory, coming up with an idea or concept, bringing together physically or conceptually various new things and ideas to make something new. Now, I love doing this. I love connecting the dots. I love being a part of seeing the next thing and connecting and then figuring out how do I communicate it to people so we can do something new. So that's how this skill works with other skills. I would not be happy just being a communicator, speaker, if you just walked up and said, Tim, here's your script. Go give the script. I might have the ability to do that. It would not energize me because I didn't get to be a part of this in it. I didn't get the part to conceptualize and connect the dots and see the thing and be a part so that when we're influencing the outcome, you were shaping here. Here's a fourth thing. Fourth thing that comes up on skills, teaching. Demonstrating, showing someone how to do something, tutoring, guiding, coaching, lecturing, instruction, stimulating others to learn by eliciting responses. Now, there was less in this area that popped than the communicating area for me. And that was a learning because I used to find myself, and I taught school at one point. When we were overseas, part of my job was I was teaching school. I thought, I like communicating, I like teaching. I realized a lot of teaching school was you're not connecting new dots, you're taking the information that was there and you're communicating. I lost energy in it. Now, I loved influencing the kids. Loved being in high schoolers' lives. But it was a good learning of how I was wired. And then the final one for me is initiating. Make a recommendation, stir things up, challenge the status quo, lay a foundation, establish something, blaze new ground, take a chance. I like to take a chance with something, supervise others to start a new project, program, a department, or organization. Now, I love that part of it. But here again was a learning, and it goes back to team. I love connecting the new dot. I love seeing the thing coming. I love communicating in a way that inspires people to change. I love seeing the new thing start and go. But once it reaches this point, my energy drops off big time. And so what I realized, if I don't partner with people who can then take that and strategically see how are we going to tactically deliver this, and then they like the execution phase of supervising and delivering, I'm in trouble. Because I'm going to do all those parts. I'm going to see the new thing, start that, and then when I lose energy, I see the new thing over here. And if I don't have these people in my life and they're taking that and something gets established, people that work around me get real frustrated. Because we thought we were going here and now you're going there again. And did we deliver on this? And did we do that? You see how learning these things help you learn, oh man, there's where strengths and weaknesses come in. You learn the people. And so you start to appreciate the strategic people. You start to appreciate the ones that will execute, even when they're asking questions over here that kind of frustrate you because they're slowing you down. You kind of go, no, we need to go. And they're going, no. Because you realize, oh man, they're asking the right questions to actually help this thing, this idea live and ultimately have the greatest influence, which is what I desire in that anyway. That's a quick flyby of me. Here's what I want you to do as you go into group. As you go into your group time, I want you to pull out your profile and look at your areas, people, data, and things, and then look at the things that were your strengths, that it said your abilities, and start looking at the descriptors underneath it. And just read through those and just do what I did. What are the words that pop? Because if you read the whole descriptor, you might read the whole thing, you go, about that. Just look, what are the things out of it that you go, yeah, I love that. Oh man, that's it. And start trying to connect the dots there. I know it says write out your mission statement. If you don't do this, you'll just kind of write out the mission statement in the dark. This can actually help shape that based on strengths, based on who you are. And so I'd encourage you in group, take just a little bit of time, go through the things, and then share with each other just like I did. You may not have time to do all of them, but share with them and go, okay, here's the 4 things that said I was great at. Here's the descriptors underneath. When I read those, man, this is the part of it that makes me come alive. And I'm starting to see how this one fits with this one. And this one fits with this one. You'll start seeing themes quicker than you think. Take that time, share those together, and then over the course of this next week, if you want to make a first pass at writing a mission statement, you can see Bill Welland's mission statement. You see a couple of them of his that are right there in the notes. And I'll share you mine next week. We'll share how we got to that point and how we processed that. And we'll finish out this together next week so that we can then move to the final part of how do we really establish those big rocks as men and our goals in our life. I know we're processing. I know it's a lot of information, chewing through it together. Here's what I'd say. Some of you right now, you're fired up. You're achievers. You're like, yes, I have a job to do. Harmonizers, you're kind of curious. Yeah, I want to see what other guys in the group, what their things are. Catalyzers, you're like, yeah, it probably would be good to know what people are like. It's always good to know what's going on around you. Catalyzers love to see everybody else's profile. Very interesting. They kind of keep a mental note with that. Dreamers, you're probably in distress right now. I'm just honest. You're just going, I got to write something. You're going to box me in. Look, it's a little box. It's my life. The last thing in the world I want to do is, I would say, if you just have one thing that triggers a word, just chase the word. If it's something that goes, it makes me, imagine the possibilities. What I don't want to do, you can look at it, an achiever wrote this exercise. And so it's very gifted and leans toward achievers with that. And so other people may struggle with it. Energizers, just have some fun with it. It's okay. You can have fun with it and enjoy. If you will keep chasing this. And it's not about writing a perfect mission statement. It's about living in your strengths. It's about, again, remembering you're fearfully and wonderfully made. When God looked at you, and he said it over every single one of us, from the womb, you were crafted to make a difference on this planet. And God looks at you, and he smiles, because he loves the way he made you. He has no regrets. And so you need to discover these things, because the more you live in it, the more not only do you come alive, the people around you come alive, and ultimately, and here's the greatest part of all, ultimately, you give glory to the one who thought you up to begin with. All right, Russell, I don't know if you got any clothes that you want to add to it before we go into group, but we will land it next week on this section.
Well, just a couple of observations. You're reading strengths in there. Kind of rookie mistake is to take this to your wife or maybe your coworkers and go, look, it doesn't say anywhere in here that I like taking out the trash, so I don't need to do that anymore, or whatever kind of those mundane duties on the whole thing. I don't have feelings. It says I don't have feelings, so I don't have to buy you anything on Valentine's Day. Guys, there's just rookie mistakes, okay? I would say just a word when you're looking at this. This is about the best version of you, about you coming alive, but it's for, like Tim was getting to, it's so you can serve this world, to make this world a better place. And what God intended you for to do is not that there's not going to be some mundane task. I mean, Jesus washed feet, okay? But we want to get you out there in the places that are unleashing you and the potential of you. But think about this mission statement kind of in these words of serving others. How can I take my strengths and how do they help other people? Because ultimately in life, the most energizing thing you're going to do, whether you're in your lane perfectly or sort of, or really not at all, it's when you're making other people's lives better. When you're serving other people, that's going to energize you. That's the ultimate energizer that'll work from cradle to grave. Guys, go get to groups.